Hi everybody, it's Don and Donna Ray from Oceanside Farms. Here we are at Walter Johnson's orchard, and you can see that he has about a 12-foot fence. It's 2 layers of 5-foot wire mesh with chicken wire around the bottom to keep the rabbits out. Does a pretty good job keeping the moose out. And this one, they use plastic panels for their wind fence and air block and moose fence, and it does a great job. Making a microclimate to warm up the air and the soil. So all in all, you'd like to have a nice gentle south slope. Southeast is better than southwest, as it'll dry the water, the dew in the morning. And well-drained soils, they don't like to have their feet wet. Look how cute. Oh, he's not cute. He's eating my tree. Sitka black-tailed deer would love to eat your apple trees. During a hard winter, they will eat almost anything. Before you grow a garden, grow a fence. So in this picture, you see a 12-foot fence with a 6 or 7-foot hedge of alder bushes on the outside of it for a wind block. 1 foot of vertical wind block protects 10 feet horizontal. In this picture, they protected the apple trees individually in their orchard.
Again, it's an experiment to see whether the cones made much difference. And it sure isn't necessary on the Valley or Evidence. But I have them on a couple other trees, and it has made a difference on the apple trees.
Oh, wow.
At least to get them started.
Warm their toes. And so you did a nice wind brace around
This is why my orchard is better than at least earlier than a lot, because there's such a good windbreak from that southwest wind. And I tell her it's important to keep the wind off. I've checked the temperature here and up on the deck. On a nice sunny day, it's 3 to 5 degrees warmer here than up on the deck.
Wow. It's good to build a microclimate with the windbreak, and notice the typar on the ground there to help with weed suppression and to warm the soil.
This is a plum tree. Years ago, I had at least 8 or 9 or 10 plum and pear trees up in the garden. Well, it was too cool up there, so I moved them clear down the other end of the orchard, and they didn't survive. Well, it'll never produce anything because I don't have a pollinator. It will bloom, but it needs a pollinator. And that's the other thing. The reason I get a better set on a lot of my apple trees is because I have so many. If you only have 1 or 2 apple trees, you know, it's hard to get them pollinated.
This is a seaberry bush, and the bushes, you can see all the berries that are on it. They're still not ripe. They're supposed to turn orange. This is their first. We've had this plant for 2 years. It's grown this much, from 1 foot tall. The berries are supposed to be really high in antioxidants, vitamin C, mixed with other berries. But it's a little bit hard to deal with a bush. You can see the thorns all over the place. It does keep the moose away, and it could make a really nice hedge that might keep the moose out. I don't know, but one thing that has us a little bit worried is we have 2 volunteers that came up in holes that were right in line here. These weren't planted, and so far it seems to be under control, but really got to be careful of
invasive plants. High tunnel. It's a jungle out there, kiddies, so be careful how many trees you put in your tunnel. So it'd be recommended to get some varieties that grow outside and let them go wild.
oh man.
Outside. And so it looks like you have some blueberries along the wall there also.
Yeah, it's not a great blueberry year for us because they're putting on a lot of extra green shoots coming out, which is wonderful. Because we wanted more shoots. We wanted to have about 6 to 8 shoots out of each plant. And we planted these way too close, not knowing what to expect. And I would plant them probably 6 feet apart.
Wow.
Did it again.
Yeah.
We built this small greenhouse in 2001, so it's getting pretty decrepit. Trees are holding it up. Walking back down, the bushes on the right-hand side are honeyberries. Christy has been covering the rhubarb beds with eelgrass for the wintertime. We just harvested the last of our rhubarb. On the trees coming up, you'll see red paint on the trunks, which represents an old graft, and the flagging tape that you see represents a graft that I did this year. We have a lot of plants that are in pots. Going to buy some apples. We have our apples on 2 different rootstocks, 2 different dwarfing rootstocks. One is Malling 26, and the other one is Gid 9, and it's a Russian rootstock, very hardy rootstock, and we really like it because it produces fruit in 3 to 4 years, and it's just a really good rootstock because it stays very small, and just our favorite. So we graft most of our trees now on that rootstock. I would recommend only dwarf fruit trees for growing inside a hoop house or a greenhouse. We made the mistake when we first started growing of growing semi-dwarfs and standards, and holy cow, they're out of control, and they don't produce fruit until way later, sometimes years or even 12 years for a standard. And so whatever you get for your greenhouse, I would recommend dwarf trees only. Most of these newly grafted trees in small pots will be taken to Sutliff's hardware store in Kodiak for sale this spring. Here's a list of our current apples that we are trialing. We have about a dozen more that aren't on the list, but anyway, everyone has a different favorite apple, so our favorites are not everyone else's favorites. So I wouldn't know what to recommend, but do your research, look at your apples, read the descriptions, and figure out what you might want.
So we've been talking about Evans Bolly, and they send out suckers. So I planted this spring, and there's already a sucker there. We had an apple tree die up the hill there, a couple trees up, and so we're going to replace it with this sucker. So here we go. Come on in. First thing you're going to do is find the root, and there it is right there. You're going to get your handy dandy saw. Ooh, not much root system there. But let's give it a heck of a try. But that's how much grew this summer. You're buying your bare root trees, you should really go with a reputable dealer. You can imagine what stress this was for the little tree. This one completely died. It had this was a 5-on-1 tree, but look what they did to the roots. This is like early childhood development gone awry. So this was like from Costco. So watch where you're buying. Get them from Lonnie and John and Christine. So that's where we're going to put the cherry. I've already dug a big hole here, so I'm just going to loosen it up a little bit. As you know, it's a cherry tree, so it'll sprout roots anywhere. That's how the suckers get to grow. So we're going to plant him a few inches deeper than he used to be. I usually make a nice little puddle there, so when I water the tree, the water stays right where I put it and it doesn't all run away. So make a indentation around your tree. Since there wasn't much root system there, I pulled the bottom leaves off and then I cut the big leaves all in half. The plant didn't need to be trying to support all that leaf structure with no root structure. You got to keep a kind of a balance between how much roots and how much leaves. So we're hoping this will take over the winter and we'll have a nice big tree next summer of Evans Bali cherry. So this hole was already dug for the apple tree that went in there, but usually you dig a hole 4 times wider than you need and not too much deeper than you need. You don't want to make a big lake underneath there for the roots to sit in. So when we planted the apple tree, the hole was amended with our compost, and we get a compost check every year, a soil test for our compost, and it is up to snuff with all the minerals that this little tree is going to need. Mark your trees and grafts well. We use aluminum flashing and some tie wire to hold on to the trees. It works pretty well. Mason bees might be a good way to go for early pollination before the other pollinators get out and about. They're mud daubers, so they need some soil to build their nests.
This is Donna Ray signing off from Oceanside Farms in Homer. We appreciate everybody who helped with the Small Farms project and the making of these fruit tree modules, especially Callie and Robbie Townsend Venel, with funding provided through the USDA 2501 program. Happy growing!